As much as outsiders would like for you to believe that Cardano is a ghost chain with little to no activity, numbers and data don't lie. As a part of today's video, I want to do a deep dive into the Q4 report for 2023 released by Messari, diving into all the key highlights in all the key areas where Cardano has been growing, and then one particular area where Cardano has been underperforming. What's up, Beta Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. My name is Fareed. As a part of today's video, I want to review the recently released State of Cardano report done by Messari for Q4 of 2023. So as always, I'll leave the link to it down below, but once every quarter, or 4 times per year, we get a report recapping all the latest highlights within Cardano and some of the other top L1s. Now, this particular update will be focusing on staking, growth, stablecoins, network adoption, network fees, and just some of the top dApps in the ecosystem. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on in. And as I mentioned, I'll go and leave the link to this down below. So this is released by Red Shahan. This was done on February 14th. Starting off with some of the biggest highlights, we have Cardano's TVL, which has increased 166% quarter over quarter and nearly 700% year over year. Now, what's interesting is that the TVL ranking for Cardano increased from 34th in terms of ranking compared to other networks all the way to 11th place. So from the beginning of 2023 all the way to 2024, we've jumped up almost 25 spots. Scrolling down, we have Cardano stablecoin value, which has increased 37% quarter over quarter, nearly again 700% year over year, with IUSD still taking the majority of the market share. However, we do have updates coming in from Mahen, who is still scheduled or on track to release on March 16th. They're bringing a fiat-backed stablecoin, which is a little bit different than the over-collateralized or the algorithmic stablecoin that we have with something like JED. Now, last but not least, at the very bottom there, we do have a note surrounding ADA's price, which has increased 127% quarter over quarter, pacing the overall crypto market by 53%, or which increase, I should say, 53%. So Cardano is trading at a low of about 24 cents. I wish, and I'm sure you probably wish as well, that you would have picked up a little bit more at those prices. This was back in October of 2023. As soon as Bitcoin broke over 32,000, we saw all the altcoins, including Cardano, beginning to follow suit, with Cardano doubling over, 48 cents, hitting an all-time high of 67 cents. Since then, we have a minor retracement, but right now, as I'm shooting this video, Cardano is trading at about 62 cents. Jumping down, we have some of the key metrics. So I want to quickly touch on these. Again, biggest thing here to note is probably the fact that the price is up over 2.3x. Looking at some of the network information in terms of active addresses, that has stayed right around that 41,000 range. We have average daily transactions also sticking around the same range of about 66 to 67,000. In terms of active ADA staked, that hasn't risen much either. And then scrolling down towards the bottom with respect to TVL, in terms of the USD value, that has gone up tremendously. However, in terms of just the amount of ADA, that has stayed relatively flat. Jumping out of the overall market review, there is a little bit more chat about the price of Cardano. They do also highlight the fact that in November, the SEC did once again allege that ADA was a security with their latest filing targeting Kraken. So in February, we saw Binance and Coinbase being targeted and ADA being listed as a security. And we saw Cardano dropping a whopping 20 to 25% over the course of just a couple of hours. And after the third allegation, we didn't necessarily see that sort of reaction. Scrolling down, we have a little bit here surrounding the network. And what I really want to touch on here is the transactions per address ratio. So I'll get myself out of the way here. And as you guys can see, that has gone up by 10% nearly in the last quarter. So what this basically means is that for each address that is live on the Cardano mainnet, we're seeing an increased amount of transactions taking place, which is obviously very positive. In terms of the active stake, again, not really any huge numbers, but I do want to quickly highlight here that with respect to the Nakamoto coefficient, we have seen a decline. So the Nakamoto coefficient, simply put, measures how decentralized the blockchain is. And over this past quarter, we've seen that coefficient drop from 34 all the way down to 31, a reduction of about 8%. Now, it's not the end of the world. Again, this is done quarterly. So we could expect, or we would expect that we could see a rebound in future quarters as we get more stake pools online and as we just get more diversification with the actual ADA being delegated. I'm going to talk a little bit more about staking here in just a minute. Scrolling down, this highlights again the daily active addresses and the transaction increase. And so as you guys can see there in the blue, we have the active addresses. And as those spiked around that timeline, when the value of Cardano began to spike, we also saw more transactions in the pink being made or being submitted to the network. Scrolling down, there is a section surrounding staking. So if I blow this up and I get myself out of the way there again, I want to highlight the fact that there has been an increase of 6.6% when it comes to stake pools. So we've now officially broken over 3,100 stake pools, making us one of the most decentralized blockchains to date. Scrolling down a little bit, we have the number of stake pools minting more than one block, which stays relatively flat, so nothing to really cheer about there. But when we take a look at the number of delegators, over the last year, right, we've seen over 50,000 delegators beginning to delegate. So this is extremely positive, right? We continue to see this number, even though it's not growing quickly, it is growing nonetheless. Now, earlier I did touch on the active ADA stake, which hasn't necessarily changed over the past year. And then scrolling down, they reiterate the Nakamoto coefficient as well as the minimum attack vector, which is very similar, which basically tracks the decentralization or how decentralized Cardano is. So both have had a drop off, and the number of pools with more than 50% of the stake has actually shrunk as well. So I think that is exactly why both of the other two numbers have dropped off as well, because we now have more or less stake pools, holding more of the delegation. What we ideally want would be more stake pools holding the majority, therefore making us much more decentralized. Jumping out of that particular piece, they do also highlight the multi-pool operators versus single stake pool operators, where we have 1,900 unique SPOs, 1,800 of them being single stake pool operators, and 178 being multiple pool operators. Now, they do also put a little caveat here stating that the total number of SPOs may be slightly lower since all SPOs didn't necessarily identify all of their pools. Now, they do also quickly highlight the fact that back in October, we did see the Cardano Foundation change its strategy towards helping SPOs grow their community and grow their delegation. With some of those changes, including the fact that now the foundation will basically allow for delegation to sit in some of their supported pools for up to a whole year. Scrolling down, they talk a little bit more about the MAV and the Nakamoto coefficient, but I do want to quickly highlight the fact that when you do compare these values to other networks, that Cardano is still doing outstandingly well. So even though we have had a drop off in this past quarter, not only can we see a rebound, but relatively speaking, compared to other L1s, we're still in good shape. They do also talk about the Edinburgh Decentralization Index, or the EDI, which Charles has mentioned before. And this is essentially a way or a method to be able to identify how decentralized a blockchain is. Right now, there's no sort of standard, but the EDI will provide that sort of structure where we can then begin to easily and quickly compare how decentralized Cardano is versus Ethereum, versus Solana, versus Bitcoin, versus Avalanche, you name it, the EDI should hopefully cover it. Now, jumping down a little bit more, they talk a little bit about Mithril, which is a way to much more efficiently synchronize and get data from the full Cardano node. They highlight the Sancho Net, which is the playground for governance, or SIP number 1694. We also just saw the release of Plutus V3 on the Sancho testnet, so make sure to get involved with that. I, as a stake pool operator, will be working to become a Mithril signer as well as a potential DREP on the Sancho net just to kind of get my feet ready and just to kind of understand governance coming down the pipes, hopefully later this year. Jumping down a little bit, we have the ecosystem analysis, which breaks down some of the key pieces to the Cardano network, including the NFT section. Now, unfortunately, and I'm going to dive into this a little bit deeper, with respect to NFTs, that particular market has been slowly shrinking. Hopefully, though, after people have made money from the bull run, they'll begin rotating those assets back over into NFTs. If you guys recall, we saw the NFT market booming about 4 or 5 months after Cardano had actually hit its top. Again, that was a lot of the fresh liquidity that had made gains or that was in profit, moving into brand new asset categories, again, being a little bit more risk on. Since then, we've seen the average daily Dapp transactions maintain. So not a big change here. Now, again, taking a look at NFT transactions over the past year, we've continued to see this number shrink. So back in Q1 at about 4,500 NFT daily transactions, we're now at about half of that amount, with only 2,600 transactions taking place. Same exact thing with the actual NFT trading volume. Because there's less transactions, there's also about half the amount of volume coming in. TVL, again, with respect to USD, because the value of ADA has gone up, so has that value. But the total amount of ADA, if we take a look at that locked at the beginning of the year, all the way till the end of the year, has basically doubled. So not only has the ADA valuation in dollars gone up, but we are seeing more people actually beginning to stake their ADA or provide that or lock it up, I should say, in different DeFi protocols. Taking a look at the stablecoin ecosystem here, at the beginning of the year, we had 10 million and we're now at 21 million, so 2x there. And again, we are expecting Mehen to launch on March 16th. Now, one thing that is interesting here is we now have the official flip from MinSwap to Indigo when it comes to the top dApps by TVL. So MinSwap, I think for almost the past year, was in that #1 spot. They have now been dethroned by the Indigo Synthetics asset platform. Again, this reiterates the same exact things I just touched on there, and it highlights the fact that we have IUSD in Jet and Wan Chain, which are all bringing stable coins to the ecosystem, with Mehen on the way. One thing to note here with respect to TVL is that it highlights that, yes, TVL is important, but it's not the end-all be-all. So while TVL is one metric to measure an ecosystem, it should not be the only metric. Many dApps and services won't meaningfully contribute to TVL in a way that a lending protocol can. For example, Iagon, a decentralized storage solution, will not be a driver for TVL because it is an infrastructure protocol. So there's no ADA that has to be locked up in order to run an Iagon node. They do allow for Iagon token staking or lockup, but again, that doesn't necessarily count towards TVL. Very similarly, it talks about Dex Hunter and Aggregator here on Cardano, as well as Axo, which don't necessarily contribute directly to TVL. One thing that is surprising is the fact that they mentioned Axo. I do believe that Axo should, with their strategies, be locking up ADA, therefore contributing to TVL. So I'll have to do a little bit of digging to see exactly why they mentioned Axo here. Taking a look at the number of dApps and transactions for the year of 2024. We can see that we had a huge spike up there in the month of December, with MinSwap getting the majority of those transactions, followed by ViFi, JPEG.store, MuesliSwap, SundaySwap. And so a lot of key DEX activity. What I would love to see is some of this activity being taken over by protocols, for example, like Indigo, and for example, like Liquid. Jumping out of here as we get closer to the end of this particular update here, we have the TVL again, where we see the ADA valuation or the USD valuation hitting an all-time high of about 449 million, with the ADA valuation nearing around 700 million ADA locked on the network. What's interesting is the small sliver here of stablecoins on the network. So that is in pink. And as you guys can see, the majority of our TVL is not coming in from stablecoins. Hopefully, after we get the launch of Mehen, this pink portion will begin to kind of overtake and grow and grow and grow as we get more and more liquidity. Scrolling down, they touch a little bit more about the fact that Indigo has officially dethroned MinSwap. Again, Indigo is shown in this pinkish color, with MinSwap transactions being shown in this larger blue stretch. Scrolling down towards the bottom, we do talk a little bit about Midnight, partner chains, and then we have the last piece that I want to quickly touch on, which is NFTs. Unfortunately, year over year, quarter over quarter, everything within the NFT marketplace is down. So NFT average daily volume and transactions, is down again about 50% since Q1 all the way to Q4. Average NFT unique buyers down halfway. Average NFT unique sellers is up. And then we have the trading volume down. And then we have the average daily NFT trading volume for secondary sales, also unfortunately down. Again, my hope is that once we have the top of the bull market, we see assets rotate over into the NFT sector. That will do it here for today's update. I want to quickly just take a minute to review the Q4 State of Cardano report. Quite a bit here. Of course, I can't touch on it all. I wanted to just bring forth some of the biggest things that I noticed. Again, we touch on the key highlights, the network overview, staking, ecosystem, and NFTs. As always, if you found any portion of today's video to be helpful, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by Dapp Central and you want more content like this highlighting everything going on in Cardano, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions for me about anything we've chatted about as a part of today's update, then please make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below. That said, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.